Tomorrow is 2 hours. It's okay. Tomorrow's 2 hours. 1 hour is more than enough tonight. Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation, your watchdog for government transparency. And the dog is barking because President Trump promised answers about the drones. Remember the ones everyone cared about for a few days when they seemed to be all over military bases in New Jersey and across the country? Well, we got answers from his new spokesperson.
And before I turn to questions, I do have news directly from the President of the United States, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons. Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones. In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
All accounted for by the FAA. That's what the Biden administration said. The same report that Trump mocked during the campaign and said there had to be a better answer. Then we get the same one? What about the multiple reports of SUV-sized drones? Were they all fake? She didn't even address them. Was the FAA aware of them? Or are they licensed or authorized? How? Oh, sorry, we're told they're not the enemy, so what were they? To advance our understanding of what they are and why we're not getting more information from the Trump administration, tonight I have the man, Jeremy Corbell, with what he's hearing and why his new series, Digging for the Truth about UFOs in Washington, D.C., is getting so much buzz. All right, he's coming up in the show. Now, look, I can't put all the blame on the new Trump spokesperson, Caroline Leavitt, because the pushback to her statement required pretty basic questions. None of them were asked. Why? Because no one there, including all the new pod people and the independents and the digital people, none of them care about anything but viral moments to make their advantage in the political gotcha game. And you know why. It's the same reason I tell you to pay less attention to the war of words online. The commodity is not truth nor transparency, but outrage. The media hunts for viral moments. Digital yappers pick sides and sell you hot takes. And the truth is collateral damage in a war of memes and bad messaging. That's the reality. I have been in this business for 25 years and lived the evolution or the devolution, depending on how you see it, that's led us here. And I know the antidote. You have to be independent. Forget about the parties. Just be what you are naturally, critical thinkers. Focus on what is done to fix. Not what is said about what they want to do and not what is said about what they say that they want to do. For example, the ICE raids. Trump promised to do them. He got elected to do them. He is doing them. Now, the question is not why is he doing this? You know why. The question is, are they a good fix? One side says they're the answer. The other side says they're anathema to what America is about. Ignore it all. See whom they grab and what happens to help and hurt communities. And then you will see the reality for better or worse, and you will see it soon. Look, I have no problem with saying that people who are here illegally know what they signed up for when they did what they did, and if they are accused of a serious crime while here, we have a consensus that they should be removed. And Biden wasn't doing enough. And I also get the people who feel that this will get the wrong people and that there is fear and pain. I have people who are not here legally in my life telling me how freaked out they are for themselves and their kids, and they're good people, and I feel for them. But blaming Trump for trying is unfair, and assuming everyone they grab is going to be a bad guy who brings fentanyl into the country is unfair. As a grandson of immigrants, as the son of a man who was seen as less than because of his ethnicity, I get the sensitivity. But the only rational choice is to judge the actions, not the motivation for the actions. That's cheap. The outcomes will come. Which brings me to tonight's serving of food for thought. How to analyze Trump's latest offering to this awful game. His move in California. What he said versus what he did. What he said. The United States military just entered the great state of California and under emergency powers turned on the water, all caps, flowing abundantly from the Pacific Northwest and beyond. Now, what motivated this? The Trump trope from the beginning is that only he can fix what Democrats broke and caused the fires in California. The simple fact is what caused those fires to be as bad as they were the Santa Ana winds. They were the X factor that controlled the catastrophe in terms of scope and duration. Was it a single factor thing? Of course not. But you have to know the fires were never going to be controlled by efforts only on the ground. They required planes and helicopters to dump water on the fire, but they were grounded for a long time because of the winds. Trump wants it to be about management. And in the absence of facts, he creates messaging that everyone can go crazy about. But to a critical thinker, what matters is whether or not anything is actually being done to fix the problem. Did Trump use the military to turn back on the water? No. Is what he did something that will prevent any such catastrophe in LA going forward? No. How do we know? Well, we know the military wasn't sent in to deal with water. So why did he say that? Because he's a liar. That's cheap. Because from a messaging perspective, it sounds strong. That's why he sent the military to the border in California and elsewhere. Sure, they're only dealing with logistics, but it sounds tough. It's a show of force. That matters in politics. So, did the federal government do anything in California? Yes. Last week, Trump signed an order directing federal agencies to maximize water deliveries in California via the federally managed Central Valley Project. As a result, federal authorities turned the water back on in a facility up north. And Trump says that that water is going to be used to fight any future fires. Now, I don't know what's scarier. If someone told him that when it's demonstrably false, or that he wants you to believe it when it's so demonstrably false. But either way, it ain't the fix that's needed. How do we know? This pumping station up north was online during the catastrophic fires. So if it was a game changer, clearly it wasn't, right? Because it was part of the action at that time. The station was only taken offline a few days ago. So this is a bluff from the start, right? I mean, the assumption both ways is wrong. It was offline, I just turned it back on, so we're good. No, it wasn't offline, and it didn't matter when the fires were there. Second, even if what he turned back on was off during the fires, and they weren't, but even if they were off, they're not connected to the LA fire infrastructure for emergency use in situations like what we all watched in horror in the Pacific Palisades. Literally, the system that he turned back on ends near Bakersfield, California, 100 miles north of LA. Now, the last point here is the most instructive because you got to expose this game. The whole reason Trump made this announcement is to play on the idea that the firefighters in Southern California had a water shortage, and that water shortage was a function of Democratic mismanagement. Now, notice, you never saw firefighters who were in this situation at the time saying that that was a problem, that they had empty hydrants, because they didn't have enough water. In fact, on NewsNation, we had them consistently telling us it wasn't true. Why? That's because Pacific Palisades relied on 3 tanks that stored 1 million gallons of water each, and they were used to maintain water pressure uphill. A lot of those houses, a lot of those fires were at elevation. They were all filled to capacity. So the supply being mismanaged wasn't the point. It's that the system was not designed to pump as much water as was used at such elevations where those fires were in Pacific Palisades. So, should the system be redesigned? Maybe. Should there be other practices and restrictions in place so that there's less fuel and more protection of homes? Probably. Like what? Mandating houses that have pools to have pumps installed so that they can use that water to protect the house and surrounding ground. Maybe. But Trump's not having that conversation. Why? Because he doesn't have to. Because all he has to do is blame the Democrats, and that gets the game going. And I do not blame him for playing the game. I don't hate the player. I hate the game. Because everybody plays along. What he did and what he says is not a fact, and it's not a fix. It's easy to play politics and say that the other side is to blame, or even better, that they're worse. That's why I tell you to ignore it, even if it means ignoring the President of the United States sometimes, when it comes to what he posts on social media, or even sometimes what he says out loud. You cannot blame him for taking advantage of a culture and a game that everybody participates in when it works for them. I know that leaders, when they speak, are supposed to be listened to, or that's how it used to be. But now you got to understand where we are and how to survive it and how to get us to a better place. The commodity is outrage and blame, because that's all these two parties seek. And that's a big reason that Trump broke through, because he doesn't like the parties either. Yes, he's a Republican, but he's a Republican because you have to be in order to compete. But he's not in love with his party either. And that's probably one of his best virtues as a leader. That's why we have to focus on what is done to fix. With Trump, what is he doing to fix? Not what he says about it, and then how does it go? Did it work? Is it better or not? Just focus on what is done and what it does. Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget, click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.